It's a little after 6. The coffee maker gurgles the way it always does. You stand at the counter in your socks, waiting, the house still dark and quiet around you. Same kitchen, same mug, same Tuesday. Nothing's wrong. That's the strange part. No alarm went off inside you, no headline announced anything. Just an ordinary morning that looks exactly like the 10,000 mornings before it. And yet, somewhere in your 40s, something quietly shifted. You didn't feel it happen. There was no line you crossed, no birthday that flipped a switch. It just began. Underneath the ordinary. That's the thing nobody warned me about. This decade doesn't announce itself. It doesn't hand you a moment you'll remember. It arrives sideways, in small changes you only notice looking back. So you pour the coffee, you go about your day, and the whole slow, quiet turning of your life keeps happening just under the surface, one ordinary morning at a time. That morning arrived without a headline, and so did this. One day you bend down to tie your shoe, and something in your back files a quiet complaint. Not pain, exactly, just a note. A reminder that somebody's keeping track now. You used to bounce back from anything. A long drive, a bad night's sleep, a weekend of moving furniture, gone by lunch. Now the recovery takes a day, then 2. Your body sends the bill later, and it always cashes. And then there's the menu. You're holding it a little farther away than you did last year, then farther still, until one day you're squinting at your own arm's length, and you realize your arms just aren't long enough anymore. So you buy the reading glasses, the cheap ones off the rack, a whole spinning tower of them. You tell yourself they're just for small print, and then you leave a pair in every room because apparently the print is everywhere now. The injuries change too. You turn an ankle stepping off a curb, nothing dramatic. In your 30s, it's forgotten by Friday. Now it lingers for weeks. It shows up when it rains. Your body has started keeping a longer memory than you do. For most of your life, the body just did what you asked. You never negotiated with it. You ordered, it delivered. That was the whole arrangement, and you never once thought to be grateful for it. Somewhere in here, the arrangement changed. Now it negotiates. It asks for warm-ups, for rest, for water, for mercy. And here's what I learned. This isn't the end of anything. It's just the first real conversation you've ever had with the thing carrying you. The body starts negotiating, and somewhere in there you notice the calendar has too. A Monday turns into a Friday before you've caught your breath. You blink, and it's fall again. Wasn't it just fall? When I was a kid, a single summer lasted a lifetime. One July went on forever. Now a whole year slides by like a Tuesday afternoon. Same year, same 365 days. It just doesn't feel that way anymore. There's a reason for it, and it's almost cruel in how simple it is. At 10, 1 year is 1/10 of everything you've ever known. At 45, that same year is a tiny sliver of a much bigger life. Each one weighs less. But the math isn't the part that gets you. It's the moment the counting flips. For most of your life, you counted up. From birth, from graduation, from the wedding, and then one ordinary day, without deciding to, you start counting the other way. You catch yourself doing new arithmetic. If my father made it to 80, that's maybe 35 more summers. 35. You can almost count them on your fingers. Suddenly, a summer is a thing you can lose, not something that just keeps arriving. That's the real turn of this decade. Time stops being the wallpaper and becomes the thing itself. Not to frighten you, to wake you up. Because once you feel it's finite, you finally start choosing what to spend it on. You start noticing time in other faces too. One weekend you drive up to see your folks, and your father takes the porch steps slower than he used to, one hand on the rail. He never used to touch that rail. This is the man who carried you on his shoulders, who fixed the car on the driveway on a Saturday, who seemed, for your whole childhood, like the strongest thing in the world. And now he's asking you to open the jar. Nobody tells you when it flips. There's no ceremony, just small things. You start reminding your mother about her appointments. You catch yourself reading the fine print on her prescription because her eyes can't anymore. It's the little repetitions that get you. The same story, told twice in one visit. The way they ask what day it is. You answer gently, the way they once answered you 1,000 patient times when you were small. Here's the strange part nobody warned me about. You grieve them while they're still right there in front of you, still laughing, still alive. You grieve the version who used to be the strong one. There's a specific kind of ache in becoming your parent's parent, in watching the person who protected you get smaller, softer, more careful, in realizing the roof over your head is now, somehow, held up by you. But here's what I tell you. Don't rush past this stretch. Slow the visits down. Sit at the table a little longer, because the strong one you're grieving is still here to be loved. And that window doesn't stay open. You start becoming a parent to your parents, and somewhere in all that caretaking, you look up one night and realize the person across the table has gone quiet too. Not angry, just quiet. Nobody warned me about this kind of silence. I expected the big fights. I braced for those. What I didn't see coming was the drifting. The slow, polite distance that settles in without a single raised voice. It doesn't look like trouble. That's the trick of it. You pass the salt, you ask about the dentist appointment, you watch your show, everything works, and nothing is said. We used to talk for hours. About nothing. About everything. Now you can drive 40 minutes and neither of you fills the air. And you both pretend that's just comfort. Sometimes it is. Sometimes it isn't. For a long time I read that silence as the end of something. I thought the quiet meant the love had drained out, that we'd become roommates who happened to share a mortgage and a last name. But here's what I finally understood. That quiet isn't always the death of a marriage. Sometimes it's just neglect. The two of you stopped tending the thing, and a garden left alone doesn't die overnight, it just goes still. The ones who make it are the ones who notice the quiet and lean back in. A real question, a hand on the shoulder. The silence isn't the verdict, it's the warning. And a warning is a gift, if you'll hear it. That same quiet that settles between two people at a dinner table, it spreads. It seeps out past the marriage and reaches the people you used to call at midnight without thinking twice. One day you realize you just don't call anymore. Nobody has a fight. Nobody storms off. There's no big falling out you can point to. It's smaller than that and slower. A text you meant to answer Tuesday. A coffee you keep rescheduling. A birthday you catch 2 days late. It's all logistics. His kid has a game. Your mother has an appointment. His weekends fill, yours fill. And the calendar just never overlaps clean anymore. You keep meaning to. Meaning to is the whole disease. And then some ordinary night it lands. You're sitting there and you go to think of the last real conversation you had. Not logistics, not weather, something true. And you can't remember. Months. It's been months. Here's what I learned, and I learned it late. Friendship at this age doesn't die from anger. It dies from being nobody's job. In your 20s, it just happened. Now, if no one carries it, it quietly stops breathing. So I stopped waiting for it to be convenient. I started being the one who calls first. Awkward at first, out of the blue, but nobody, not one person, was ever sorry to hear from me. That's the part nobody warns you about. The same busyness that thinned out the friends had me chained to a desk for years. And one ordinary Tuesday, I looked up from that desk and understood something I'd been avoiding. This was probably as high as I was going to climb. Nobody tells you when it happens. There's no meeting. The promotion just goes to someone younger, someone hungrier, and you clap for them in the hallway. And a small voice inside says, quietly, that your turn already came and went. I remember the fire I had at 30, staying late, chasing the next rung. Sure, the corner office had my name on it. I'd have laughed at anyone who told me the fire cools. But it does, not all at once, like a room losing heat. And here's the part that surprised me. I thought that cooling would feel like defeat. Some days it did. The younger me would have called it giving up. But sitting there that Tuesday, I felt something else underneath the disappointment. Something lighter. Relief. Plain relief. The endless proving was finally over. I didn't have to win the meeting anymore. I didn't have to be the smartest voice in the room. That whole exhausting race I'd been running since I was 22, I could just step off it. You learn a strange truth in your 40s. The title you chased so hard was never going to fill you up. It was a costume. And when you finally stop reaching for the bigger one, you notice how heavy the reaching itself had been. So I made a kind of peace. The career would be what it was. Good enough. Steady. Not the mountain I'd imagined at 30, but solid ground under my feet. And with that reaching finally quiet, I had room to notice who was standing beside me at home. The ambition cooled at work, and I told myself that was fine. But the same thing was happening at home, and that one caught me off guard. One day the door didn't slam. The house just went still. For years they needed everything. A ride, a signature, someone to find the missing shoe, someone to sit up when the fever spiked. You were the answer to 100 small questions a day. And then, quietly, the questions stopped coming. It's the afternoons that get you. That stretch after school that used to be pure chaos, backpacks and snacks and homework fights. Now it's just quiet. You stand in the kitchen holding a glass of water you don't remember pouring. Here's the part nobody warned me about. For 20 years, I didn't just love them. I was them. My whole name for myself was somebody's dad. Take that away, and I honestly wasn't sure what was left underneath. And you can't say any of it out loud, because you're supposed to be proud. You are proud. This is what you raised them for. But grief and pride can sit in the same chest at the same time, and mine did. But here's what I learned, and I wish someone had told me sooner. They don't stop needing you. They stop needing you like that. The rescuer, the fixer, that job ends. What they want now is you, just steady, just there when they call. The house gets quieter when they need you less. And in that quiet, at the kitchen table one night, I finally opened the statement I'd been ignoring for months. Just to look, just to know where I stood. For years, retirement was a word for other people, old people. A someday so far off, it didn't feel real. Then, somewhere in my 40s, the math stopped being a rumor and became a number staring back at me. Here's what nobody warned me about. In your 40s, the runway shortens. You start counting backward. Not the years you've saved, but the years you have left to save. And that changes everything about how a dollar feels. I did the thing I'd avoided. I added it up. What was coming in, what was going out, what would actually be there at the end. The pile was smaller than the story I'd been telling myself. And that's when the choices get real. The ones you kept putting off. Do you keep the big house? Bail the kid out again? Retire when you dreamed? Or 5 years past it? These aren't hypotheticals anymore. They have deadlines. But here's what the number gave me that the avoiding never did. Knowing where I stood, even if it scared me, was better than pretending. You can't steer toward a shore you refuse to look at, so I finally looked. And I started. You run those retirement numbers enough times, you start asking a stranger question. Not, can I afford to stop? But who am I if I do? Because so much of who I thought I was got built at that desk. For years, you were the provider, the dad who fixed things, the one they called at work, the one climbing. Every role had a shape, and you poured yourself into it until the shape and the self felt like the same thing. Then the roles start loosening, one by one. The striving cools. The kids need you differently. And one quiet evening, you catch yourself in the hallway mirror and think, I don't fully know that guy anymore. And here's what nobody warned me. It doesn't show up as a crisis. No sports car. No affair. It's quieter than that. It's a Tuesday. And you honestly can't say what you'd do with a free afternoon that was just yours. I spent a while scared of that emptiness. I kept reaching for the old roles, like reaching for a light switch in a room where the wall had moved. My hand kept finding nothing there. But here's what I finally understood. That stranger in the mirror isn't a loss of who you were. He's who was under all of it the whole time, waiting for the noise to die down. The roles were the costume. He's the man. You're standing there trying to recognize the face, looking back at you. And then, without asking, the phone rings on a Tuesday morning, and someone you went to school with is gone. Just like that. For most of your life, funerals were for the old. Grandparents. Great aunts you barely knew. You wore the dark suit, you signed the book, you went home. It was sad, but it was expected. It was their turn. But this one's different. This one was your age, maybe younger. He ran, he ate right, he did everything you're supposed to do. And you catch yourself doing the math you've never had to do before. There's a mentor, too, the one who gave you your first real chance, who seemed carved out of stone. You always meant to call and thank him properly. Now his chair is empty, and the words stay in your throat. That's the thing nobody warned you about. It stops being a fact you read on a page. It becomes a face, a specific hand you shook, a laugh you can still hear. Death gets a name now. And here's what that first real loss handed me, whether I wanted it or not. The clock I'd been ignoring got loud, and every name I'd been meaning to call, I finally started calling. That's the gift buried in the grief. After you've stood at a graveside or two your own age, something odd happens. You stop bracing. You'd think the fear would swallow you. Instead, quietly, this decade started handing me things nobody warned me about. The first gift was the smallest and the best. I stopped caring what strangers thought of me. That opinion I used to carry around like a wet coat. One day I just set it down. And I didn't pick it back up. Here's what I couldn't have known at 30. All that worrying about being judged, most people were too busy worrying about themselves to even notice me. I'd spent years performing for an audience that was never really watching. When you stop performing, your own judgment gets clearer. I can smell a bad deal now, a bad friend, a room I shouldn't be in. It took 20 years of getting it wrong to finally hear that quiet voice that was right all along. The appetite changed too. I don't need the big trip, the crowded party, the loud win anymore. Give me a decent cup of coffee at 6 a.m. and a window with some light in it. That's plenty. That's actually a lot. There's a steadiness now that I never had before. The panic that used to run my life just lost its grip. When something goes wrong now, I don't spiral. I've been through worse. I know it passes. That knowing is worth every gray hair. Nobody sat me down and said, the aching decade would also be the one where you finally become yourself. But that's the trade. You lose the illusions, and you get to keep what's real. I wouldn't hand it back now if you asked me. So if this decade hands you a steadiness you didn't expect, here's what I'd want you to know, plainly, as a friend who's already walked it. Not rules, just the few things that turned out to matter. People you love won't be here as long as you keep assuming, so call. Sit at the table a little longer. The ordinary conversations are the ones you'll ache for later, not the big occasions. Your body isn't betraying you, it's telling you the truth. Listen to it early, move it while you can, sleep like it matters. The care you give it now buys you the years you'll actually enjoy. And stop waiting to become someone before you let yourself rest. The striving quiets down whether you approve or not. You are allowed to like your life at the size it already is. Nobody warned me about any of this. Turns out nobody could. You only learn a decade by living it. But here's the part they got wrong. It isn't the end of anything. It's just the first time you're awake for it. If any of this resonated, tell me in the comments which part hit home or what you'd add from your own life. And if you'd like to keep figuring this out together, subscribe and stay with me a while.